Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. Your host, JP John Paz, with me today, very special guest, former WCW superstar, former TNA superstar. Of course, now he's an actor, Mr. Luther Biggs. Welcome in. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for the introduction. I don't really need to be the superstar, but thank you.
What is going on in your world? What's going on with the Unbreakable Bunch?
Well, the movie's out. It's streaming on multiple platforms, and we've been getting some very nice reviews. I'm very grateful for that. Ray Lloyd's doing the best he can to keep spreading the word with all the connections that he has. So um, it's going good.
And of course, now it's available streaming everywhere, which is another step in the right direction because everything is streaming now.
Correct. Correct.
Pretty crazy when you think about it. It's like, oh, we got to get in the movie theaters, got to get in the movie theaters, and then once that happens, it's like, okay, now we got to get streaming. Now we got to get streaming. It's just the way the world works nowadays.
Right. And where are you coming to us from?
Asbury Park, New
Oh,
Jersey.
wow. Up there in New Jersey. Okay. I've never been to Asbury Park.
Oh, really? Okay. It's an interesting place here.
Is that where
Obviously,
Bam Bam was from?
yep. I was going to say, obviously, the home of Bam Bam Bigelow. I know a lot of people say Bruce and stuff like that, but I always say Bam Bam Bigelow.
I say Bam Bam Bigelow too.
Yes, it's not Disgraceland though. I know it's nowhere near there. I know that.
No, listen, that's a low point. I don't like to remember that name.
That was a funny gimmick, though. I know TNA was trying, and it was Glenn Gilberti, Disco Inferno, but kind of a funny gimmick, as far as almost very much reminiscent of Burn in Love a little bit.
Well, it is in a way, but I mean, honestly, the thing that is very, very hard is the fact that you work so hard down there at that power plant. And I was blessed to have been there. And I'm so grateful to Pez Watley, Sarge, especially, and then Mike Winter, Jody Hamilton, Paul Orndorff to some degree. You work so hard, and then they put you out there and they tell you to basically be a guy who can't really wrestle. That was the character, I mean, and it's just the heart inside you kind of dies at that point. That was where wrestling was really changing from something that I loved and looked up to, that I treasured, that I cherished, and they were turning it into, I don't know what word you would use, but less than the opportunity to show your athletic talents, more just go out there and clown around, and I didn't really enjoy it.
What was it supposed to be? Because remember they had the flying Elvises at first, and then they bring it. Was it just like an Elvis fascination?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very odd. I was doing the Burn and Love character before that with Dusty in Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, and I had that exact outfit, the one that the Flying Elvises used. And so, of course, I had sent a tape like everybody else did, and I was told, "Oh yeah, Jerry Jarrett, he really likes you, and he's going to bring you in." And I was like, "Oh, that's fabulous! I'm pretty happy." And then they came out with the Flying Elvises with my outfit on, and yeah, I was disappointed, but that's life. I mean, you're used to it by then in wrestling. You don't really expect things to happen just because you're told they will. And then I don't know. They wanted me to at one point to come up and do it, and I was kind of done with wrestling. I was actually teaching school. I had left Atlanta, and I was in Orlando, Tavares, Florida, actually Lake County, which is north of Orlando. And they asked me to do it, and so I came back and I did it. And when I got there and found out what it was, I didn't want to do it. And so I did the one match. And I don't really like to even talk about it that much. But basically, I did the one match. And, of course, I got a win. And then they wanted me to come back, and I didn't want to come back. And then they said, well, we at least come back and, put somebody over. Well, that's the right thing to do. I mean, so I did that. But that was it.
So Burnin' Love actually isn't just from Unbreakable Bunch. I didn't realize that. It's actually from TCW with Dusty Rhodes.
That's right. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling with Dusty Rhodes. That's where Burnin' Love came from. TCB, Dusty would say, taking care of Biggs.
Did you create the character, or was that Dusty?
It was both of us. I mean, I had wanted to do an Elvis character, and actually, it was going to be Hunk of Love. Jimmy Hart came up with that, and that was right when WCW was going down, in its last gasps, and Jimmy was going to bring me in as Hunk of Love. So I had the gear made, and then WCW folded. And then I was working for Dusty for a little while as just a manager, Luther Biggs, which sort of reprised the role that I had done in Memphis. And then I said, yeah, Dusty, I love being on the show and everything, but sometimes we make these long road trips, and I really, it's not that satisfying to just manage. I really would like to wrestle. And then I said, I've got this gear, and his eyes kind of lit up. He said, I didn't have any idea you had that gear. He said, yeah, that's great, and so then I started wrestling, and I don't know, Jimmy Hart always liked the name Hunk of Love. I always liked Burnin' Love because that's my favorite song, and so I don't know if it was Dusty's choice or mine, but we went with Burnin' Love. I was very, very grateful to have had that opportunity.
Are you a big Elvis guy? I guess you are, right?
I am. I'm a huge Elvis fan. Huge Elvis fan. Always have been. And anybody who knows me knows that. And, a lot of people like Elvis, but most don't like him as much as I do.
Nice. I like that. Suspicious Minds is my favorite Elvis song. You said Burn Love. My Suspicious Mind, great song.
Suspicious Minds is fabulous. Yeah, great song.
Is there a new series coming out about Elvis on Netflix? I thought they were putting something else out about it.
They just did. It's about the 68 comeback special. Yeah, so supposedly pretty good. I have not seen it. I might watch it tonight.
There you go. Yeah. Was that basically he needed that special to kind of, make the huge comeback, if you will?
Well, he'd been doing the movies for so long, and he wanted to go back to live performing live, and he wanted to do it with a splash. Do something big. I think it was originally going to be a Christmas special, where, he sang more traditional Christmas songs, and then some Hollywood folks got involved and said, look, let's make this, something more up to date, for the 1960s. So, but that sort of marked the end of his movies. I mean, the movies had become such a disappointment, I think, to him and probably the fans. So yes, that was the big thing, like, can he still be relevant on stage? And of course he came out and proved that he could.
Did he really know karate and all that stuff? He always did the moves and stuff, but did he actually know karate?
He did know karate. He was very good at karate. You'll hear all kinds of detractors, people who say that his karate was terrible and that he was fake and this and that. But I believe in his karate. And I remember reading a book by, what's his name? The director. He did, he directed Elvis in the movie Flaming Star, which was an early Western, which really was pretty good. But he was big buddies with Clint Eastwood. He did John Wayne's last movie. I can't think of the name right now. It's terrible.
The Shootist.
The Shootist. Right. That was a fabulous movie. That's one of my favorite movies. It's funny. Dusty loved that movie too. That was one of the things that Dusty and I had in common. He loved John Wayne, and we had some fun discussions about those movies, especially that one. But the director of that talked about what Elvis was like as a stuntman, doing his own stunts, doing his fight scenes, how lightning fast he was, how good his karate was. And So, I mean, I think that's a pretty good indication that Elvis's karate was pretty legit.
Don Siegel.
There you go. I knew it was.
Yes.
I was going to say
Yes.
like Siegler or something like that, but yes, Don Siegel, right?
The Shootist, one of my favorite movies of all time. My dad was huge into John Wayne, just obsessed with John Wayne. But The Shootist is so good because it's actually his real life, which is paralleling the movie. He's dying, and he's going forward and trying to have like this one last stand. If you will, what an amazing movie! That's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love The Shootist.
I love it. I love the casting. I remember walking in, Dusty, when he had Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, he had an office there, and it was really kind of like a clubhouse for the guys. He had one room with a TV setup, VCR, and the couch and chairs, and that was sort of like the front of the office, and there was that room, and then there was his office in the back. And I remember sitting in there. It's funny how you back then, you didn't have Netflix, you didn't have streaming. I mean, if people went home and said, hey, what's on TV?
Right. Yep.
And so, that night, the night before, the Shootist had been on, and I remember walking in and said, hey, I watched the Shootist last night. He said, I did too. And he said, don't you love that part where Jimmy Stewart tells him, that he's got a cancer, and John Wayne says, can't you cut it out, Doc? And I said, yeah, it's great acting, and it's just a great story, and in so many ways, such a great performance. Yeah, I remember reading Don Siegel's book, also talking about, it's the magic of movies. That last shootout scene with John Wayne in there.
Yes.
I mean, how many? It's minutes, if just a couple minutes long, but how many days it took to shoot that, especially because John Wayne was so ill. And how he could come in and do a couple things, and then, they would just have to shoot the other guys,
Yep.
Fascinating stuff.
And that final shootout scene, it's great. Like, he's setting it up. He wants one last gunfight, if you will, and he sets it up where the odds are against him. Like, so good. Just great writing, great ending, and Ron Howard, Opie, he's great.
I know, he's so good at it, man. You never would think that he really would be someone great in a John Wayne movie, but he is. And
Yes.
I loved it. But yes, you're right when you talk about. I love when there's so many good characters. Sherry North, she was an actress who I love, and she's the one who comes and she tries to marry John Wayne, because she knows he's sick and he's not going to live long. But this way, she could, be the widow of the great J.B. Books, and
Yes.
she could, sort of live off that fame. What a great little subplot there. I think it's not what people think of with a John Wayne movie. I don't think enough people know about it. And I wish it was, more widely known, because I think it's something that appeals to people that wouldn't like your traditional John Wayne movie.
Right. Yes. It's very not emotional, but it can be emotional, especially if you know the story. So yeah, it's different than your normal John Wayne Western, the Cowboys or the Searchers or something. Yeah.
Right.
And two, Jimmy Stewart is great. And obviously him and Wayne were friends and they were in other movies together, but man, he was great too.
Yes. Yeah. It was a great way to finish it out. I mean, I don't know that John Wayne necessarily knew for a fact that was his last movie, but I think he probably had a pretty good idea.
Yeah. It seemed like it.
Yeah. So it was, the other one obviously was Jimmy Stewart, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is.
Yes. Yes.
That's a masterpiece in a whole different way.
Yep.
It's such an original film. Yeah. Well, I wish Dusty was here to talk about all these with us, because
right. Oh my God.
He had a lot of opinions on all the John Wayne stuff. I can tell you that.
Liberty Valance is so great too, because you kind of get a feeling of what happens, right, with John Wayne's character. Not that that's a spoiler; it's 60 years old, but you know what I mean. Like, obviously he's dead, and then they're going to his funeral, but then they're going back to how did he become the man who shot Liberty Valance, and like the whole story. It's great. I was like, man, that's just so. And the villain, Liberty Valance, the villain, is awesome. So such a great movie.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, though. The way that they're looking back in time.
Yes,
I think that a lot of movies try and do that.
They copied it, yeah.
And I think that movie does it better than anything, you know. And then the reveal, of course, at the end. But I mean,
Yes.
it's Lee Marvin, you know,
Excellent.
what a what a jerk he plays, you know.
Yep.
And so and yeah, I love all that stuff. I really do. I love everything about it.
Man, I've watched so many John Wayne movies. I have a list of ones that I haven't watched that I'm like, oh, I got to watch the Comancheros. And like, there's a bunch of other really good ones that I need to watch. But yeah, he's great. But it's funny, like we're talking Dusty. I actually had the honor and the privilege. I did his last ever interview. It was only a few days before he had passed.
Oh
So we
wow.
became, it's funny, not friends, but friendly because we talked setting it up. We talked, a little bit right afterwards, thanking me, me thanking him and him thanking me. And like I felt like, wow, I hardly know him, but he's treating me like I'm like, hey, he would call me Johnny. Hey, Johnny, like, what's going on? When we doing this thing, Johnny? Like, he was so cool. It was like, I felt like I'm an old friend, like traveling the road with him. Like, I'm wrestling him at Starcade. I'm like, just he had such like a cool guy. I was like, man, unbelievable.
Well, yeah, he had a heart of gold. It was very nice, very, very nice. And that's a good way to describe just how quickly he could warm up to you, make you feel like $1 million. Not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah, it was like, man, like I hardly know this guy, but I feel like, first of all, I'm marking out because he's Dusty, right? And then I'm like, wow, he's treating me, yeah, right. And then he's treating me like I'm like his friend. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. He has like that kind of like everybody is his good friend kind of vibe to him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was a great guy, man. A lot of people miss him, and I'll tell you, I would love to have seen when he started Turnbuckle, and he had some good times with it, bad times with it, but he was such a creative guy, and it's such a shame that this technology of YouTube, Facebook, all this stuff came after him. I mean, after he had that company, because had he had all those tools, I think he would have done something pretty incredible with those tools and with the company.
Yeah, I feel like there were so many good guys that came in there. Like obviously you and Ray Lloyd are in there. You had Scotty Riggs, right, and obviously Dustin maybe making a few appearances. Like
Dustin was
pretty
there a
damn,
lot.
yeah, pretty damn good roster.
He used Barry Windham quite a bit, and Ricky Morton, Bobby Eaton. He brought in Bunkhouse Buck, Larry Zbyszko, Raging Bull Manny Fernandez. A lot of guys, man. Scott Hall did some shows. So yeah, there was a lot of good talent that came through there.
So funny. One of the last things that I talked to Dusty about was just a joke about Larry Zbyszko, and he was teasing that he got to when he turned heel with the NWO. He said he hated it. It was so dumb. Like it didn't really make sense. But the one good thing was he got to elbow Zbyszko and beat up Zbyszko. So it's the only good thing that came out of it.
Right. That's pretty funny. I like that.
And Zbyszko is awesome in the Unbreakable Bunch. I love him as legend, and he's such like just a relaxing, like, hey, he's smoking a cigarette. Like, what a good actor Zbyszko is. I love Larry.
He really is a natural. I mean, everyone on set, the people that worked in the crew, and who've obviously been doing films for a long time, they all talked about how easily it would be for him to roll right up, in a real movie. They said, "Oh, you can see him playing somebody's father on The Sopranos or something." That's what they would say. A lot of people compared him to John Voight. I mean, yeah, Larry was fabulous. I mean, very, very talented. Which, of course, it didn't come as any surprise to us. But he was so great to work with that it's something I'll never forget.
I've interviewed him a few times, and when I would call him, he'd call me back. I would purposely send it to voicemail because I wanted to hear. I loved his commentary, so I love his voice, but I wanted to hear because every time he'd call, he would have like an anecdote. So he'd be like, "John, I'm on the 9th green right now. I'm about to finish," and he'd have like a story for like literally a minute of golf, and I would just purposely let it go to voicemail because I wanted to hear what he had to say. Like I just wanted 30 seconds to a minute of a Zbyszko story. And every time I get an awesome story, like I'm on the 18th green now. I just shot a par 3 or whatever. It's just so funny. I was like, I love Zbyszko. He's so great. I just love his voice.
Yes, yes, I do too. It's a pretty smart thing to do. Let it go to voicemail. I never thought of that. Yeah, no, he's a very entertaining guy in any setting. That's the best way I can describe him. He really is.
You play a pretty big part when we're talking about the movie, though, because you kind of are, using your voice and narrating quite a bit in the film.
That was not originally planned, but this first movie I've ever made, so I don't know. I would venture to say that a lot of movies end up being a lot longer than people think they're going to be when they first put them together. And so in order to shorten this, that strategy was suggested to us to use a lot of narration. And so out of that grew the idea of having Vernon Love being interviewed many years later and telling the story. So if we hadn't done it, the movie would have been real long. I mean, it's some of those scenes, especially where you see Jock going and recruiting people, Tonga, Ernest the Cat Miller, Larry Zbyszko. I mean, they're long. And so I think it was an effective way to move it forward, and I was awfully glad to do it.
It's great, and I love the fact, obviously Haku, Tonga, Ming is a part of the cast. Ernest Cat Miller, a couple of really legit tough guys there, but awesome characters.
Yes, great guys all the way around. It was such a special thing to be with those guys again after we've seen a lot of each other in the last few years now since the filming of it. But there had been a period there where I hadn't seen Ernest in a few years, maybe 5 or 6 years. And, we all were together at the power plant. I mean, Tonga was not at the power plant, but, we knew him. I wrestled him on Thunder one night. But Ray and Ernest and I had been at the power plant together. And they were there doing their Blood Runs Cold stuff when I was a power plant trainee. And I'll never forget the first night we were together. We went to a high school football game in Ray's hometown, and we sat down, and Ernest said, I got to tell you guys, it's great spending time with you again after all these years. And, and it was sort of something I think that we were all feeling, but nobody verbalized it. Ernest was the one smart enough to put it into words. And I said, boy, that's that rings true. And I think that needs to be in the movie. So
yeah,
as there's a point in there where he does say that. So that comes from real life. And that's part of what we try to do with the movie is the parts where they're on the road, try to make it as much as possible for people to see what it's like for wrestlers when they're on the road, and the things that they talk about and what those relationships are like.
And I love some of the characters you guys run into on the road. Some good cameos from some awesome guys, WCW alumni, of course, too.
Well, yes, I'm so happy that thank goodness Big Ron Reese is in the movie. Ron was my roommate the whole time I was in Atlanta, and he and I are very close friends. And Gangrel, of course, he's not a WCW guy, but he was there at one time. He is one of the first people I ever met in wrestling, 1988, down here at the Global Wrestling Academy, where Rusty Brooks, Boris Malenko, and Bob Roop were the trainers. And so it was great having him in there. And then I mean, I still can't believe we had Stan Hansen in it. I mean, I
Yeah.
was such a fan of that man. I mean, my goodness, and he did a great job, and it was fun, and it's funny how that works. I mean, Ray had certain connections with people, and I had certain connections with people, and it just all kind of came together. And I was awfully happy that we got Pinklon Thomas in there for a cameo. Um, we got a world heavyweight champion boxer and several world heavyweight champion wrestlers in our movie. So uh, I thought that was a nice little touch, and it's something that we talked about. But you get so run down, and I mean, it's tough making the movie, and we had some resistance on certain things. And anyhow, Ray really pushed me to follow through on the Pinklon Thomas thing, and I'm awfully glad I did, because I think Pinklon Thomas adds a lot to it. Boy, he walks out there dressed up like that in that suit, looks like $1,000,000, and to see that World Heavyweight Championship belt, the green one, the one that just always stood out to me as
Right.
the
Yep.
heavyweight boxing belt. I mean, I still, I always picture Tyson with it, but I mean, yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, it was many years of planning, and thank God for Ray's perseverance, um, and the cooperation of some good friends.
It's great that it's a lot of WCW to me, like WCW alumni. But if you actually, I was talking to Ray about this, I think it was 2 weeks ago, basically, talking about like, okay, you and him know each other, WCW Power Plant, but it's like all those guys are kind of WCW alums. So how did you, which is really cool, but how did you kind of get into WCW to begin with? Like, how did you get into the Power Plant?
I was working in the Canadian Football League, and I was a lot of people don't remember, but the Canadian Football League actually expanded to the United States for a couple of years in the mid 90s. So there was a team in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was working for that team, and I worked for Forrest Gregg, who was he's a Hall of Famer in the NFL, probably the best Packer ever. I mean, Lombardi said he was the best football player he ever coached. And so I was having a pretty good time. I mean, felt very blessed to be doing that. And I happened to be with some friends who were going to do some enhancement work there at Center Stage. And then they invited us, hey, you guys come to the power plant tomorrow. And so we said, oh, yeah, sure, we'll come hang out, And of course, we got there and they put us through the work out of our life, I mean, just about killed us. I mean, it was brutal. And then Paul White was in there at that time. Ron Reese was in there at that time. Chip Minton, he was a real legitimate Olympic athlete. He was in there at the time, bobsled guy. And anyhow, it was right before football season started, but it sort of lit a fire under me. And I said, well, I'd like to come back and do this full time. And they said, well, you have to go through a 3-day tryout. So I said, okay, well, I'll talk to you after football season. So long story short, I just basically went and tried out that November. Once football season ended, I was running the stairs at Independence Stadium in Shreveport, Louisiana to get in shape. I knew to do squats, so I was doing my squats. And I just got myself in as good a shape as I could. And I barely made it. I mean, I barely made it. But, I'm so grateful that I did. It was a great experience.
They always say the power plant was like the toughest. Obviously, they did a documentary on it, and people saw how tough it was. But they always say it was like the toughest place to break through. Batista famously quit. All these guys quit. So you're probably one of only a few that actually made it to the end.
Yes, there was about 30 guys, I think, in my group, and 3 of us finished. And
Wow.
I remember at the end of the second day, there was Parade Magazine was there doing a story on us. I don't even know that Parade Magazine exists anymore. But I remember the lady talking to Sarge. Sarge, man, was relentless on me. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about him, you know.
Oh, yes.
I mean, the guy's got a heart of gold, but he doesn't want you to see it, you know. But I'll never forget at the end, he was talking and we were limping out of there, you know, after the second day. And he pointed at me and he said, "Fat ass over there won't be back tomorrow. That I can guarantee you." And I thought, yeah, well, whatever, you know. And I was sleeping on a friend's floor in Atlanta. And the next morning, alarm clock went off, and man, I was cramped up and I was hurting, and I almost didn't go, you know, but that kind of rang in my ears. That and the fact that, you know, my friends were getting up to go to work and I couldn't really face them and say, I'm not going, you know, I'm quitting, you know, I said, I'll go, you know, I just dragged myself in there, and, you know, luckily the third day wasn't as bad. But it was still pretty hard. So yeah. I mean, man, I mean, it was wild. That's what I can tell you. It's time of my life, but it was wild.
But you got to really want it. If 30 people are quitting, you know what I mean? Like, you got to really, really want it. That's crazy.
Yeah, we used to debate that. I mean, Canyon and I used to talk about that a lot because, you know, Canyon, he would change his opinions here and there, but one of his opinions was that it was too hard, you know, and that they were running off some good people.
Yep.
And my opinion was no, if you want it, you'll get it, you know, because I made it. I was 308 pounds when I went through. And
Wow.
yeah, I was heavy, down from 327. So, you know, I dropped almost 20 pounds, but yeah, I was heavy. But yeah, Canyon and I used to talk about that a lot, you know. And yeah, he's another guy who was down there a lot at the power plant. It's funny. The day of tryouts was so much fun for some people. I didn't really enjoy it as much as other guys did, but because I had to go through it with them because I was still a trainee. But guys like Canyon and Disco and Kidman and Glacier, you know, they would come and sit at the lunch table and just observe because they wanted to see. You know, they're over there making bets on who's going to quit first and who's going to fall out first, and you know, yeah, we're over there really like doing the squats, and you could just see them over there. They brought food. You know, they're having the time of their lives, man.
It's so funny just like to think about all the guys that came through, you know, that ended up on TV, but it's like the power plant. There's just crazy the stories of like how you can even survive the power plant. You know what I mean? Like, obviously you mentioned Reese too. Reese was part of the power plant. Just all these great guys that were in it, but it almost impossible to survive because they didn't want you to survive.
No, they made it very tough, and I think that's because a guy like Jody Hamilton didn't want a lot of jokers hanging around. You know, he just, you know, he was like, either you want to be here or you don't, and if you want to be here, you're going to have to prove it times two. And I think that's why it was such a special place because, you know, because it was so hard to get in. Yeah, it was fascinating. I wish we had more footage of all that. I mean, you know, nowadays
Yeah.
people have to film everything, but that would have been fun to see more of that footage. Because the thing is you never knew. People come in there, you know, they look like $1 million. I mean, you know, back then the old bicycle shorts were real popular, and the you know, guys would come in there with their bicycle shorts and their skin tight tank tops, and they're ripped, and they'd be the first ones to fall out. You know, it's your heart. You know, you can't see that on the outside. You know, and then, you know, some very average looking guy, you know, physically wise, may make it till the second day, middle of the second day. So it's funny, they would come in there, everybody's kind of nervous, but then they would see me, and I think they all breathed a sigh of relief because they thought, well, this guy's pretty overweight. You know, if he can make it, then I know I can. You know, it wasn't as easy as they thought.
Right, man. It's and Ray was saying that too. Like, oh, this jacked up football player, he quit. Like, this other Olympian, he quit. Like, oh, people just quit because they didn't want it bad enough, basically.
Yeah, no, I mean they had no idea what they were in for, and it was. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Bob Sapp came in there. He had a pretty tough time. I mean, I don't know if you heard that story or not, but
No, no. What is the story? I know he was there. I know obviously he was going to debut in
well, yeah.
WCW
I
if
mean,
they didn't
I don't
close.
really know Bob, but I know that he, the first day was no cakewalk for him. You know, he might have gotten sick. So
Yeah,
um, uh, of course, he told us he just had a pretty big breakfast, so that could be a big part of it. Very nice guy, though. Very nice guy. Let me throw that in there.
and obviously became a gigantic star in Japan for a bunch
Huge,
of years. Monster
huge,
star.
but not in WCW, right? I mean, was
No,
what
nope. They
happened?
they closed the doors, and like he was on Thunder with an interview. He was going to debut, and WWE was closed, and WWF never brought him in. He wanted too much money. They wanted to, they were giving everybody no money to jump.
Yeah.
So they offered
So,
him nothing. He went to Japan, became a huge star.
so Bob WCW was actually going to give Bob Sapp a try, but it just ran
Yes.
out of time.
Yep.
Okay, that makes more
Sam
sense.
Sam Greco too, who's a obviously legendary fighter, kickboxer, karate, everything else. He was in WCW, the Power Plant too. He was going to get a shot. They kind of debuted him, not on TV, but they showed that he was coming in, and obviously that didn't work out either. Yeah, he had a great career, but that didn't work out for him either.
Right. Yeah. Well, I would have loved to see what Bob Sapp could have done here in the States. I mean, what a great look, and boy, he lit it up over there in Japan. I mean, it's too bad.
Man, he was getting kickboxing wins over one of the best kickboxers, or Hoosts, twice in a row. He almost beat Big Nog for the Pride MMA title. Then he's over there with New Japan, being the world champ. I mean, he was on fire over there, doing
Yeah.
commercials, sumo wrestling, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish he could have done it here because I'm a fan of a wrestler who's big like that. That look,
Yep.
That's what a wrestler looks like in my opinion.
Yeah, he's like Brock Lesnar, but he's bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow, yeah. Actually, a lot bigger, and
Is
could
he?
move pretty damn good. Yeah, oh yeah.
Wow. Well, I hope he's doing well now. I mean, he had a great career. Did
For
some
sure.
movies, but I haven't seen him in a while. Any idea what he's doing now?
I'm not sure. I know he took some fights in Japan recently, and they almost seemed a little bit maybe work shoot style, even though I don't think it was billed that way. Just that's what it seemed like. Maybe trying to almost like pull a Tyson. You try to build the name up reputation, maybe make a few bucks before you officially retire.
Yeah. Well, good for him. I mean, yeah, he deserves it.
So WCW, obviously, you went through the power plant. What's the way you can get on TV? Like, obviously, you did a bunch of matches, basically starting in '96, almost until the end. So, like, what's like you just got to meet with Bischoff, and he says, "Here's a gimmick we're putting on TV," or how does that work?
No, I mean, basically, I think your first test is they send you down, or they send you out to do some of the enhancement matches, uh, and see how you'll do there, and then you just try to come up with a gimmick, and you try to um, catch somebody's attention in the office, and that was a hard thing to do for a long time there. I mean, when when I first got there in '96, and it's not too long after that the NWO comes out, and then they're signing a bunch of guys, and they just really weren't looking to the power plant that much at that time because they were more interested, I think, in getting outside talent and bringing it in. They'd had such success with the NWO. And uh, in my case, I was kind of floundering there for a long time, and then they ended the Glacier gimmick, and we're going to bring him back as Buzz Stern, and they needed someone to be his student, and I fit that role, so that was my opportunity to get on there and have some time with WCW. and actually, get a contract finally. So that was nice. I'm glad that I had that opportunity.
So if you're in the power plant, you're technically not signed officially to WCW. Is that a different contract?
Some are, some aren't. It just depends. Early on when I was there, no. Well, I mean, like for instance, Ron Reese was always under contract. But most of us were students there learning. And then I left for a while. I actually had a couple surgeries. I was out for a year and a half. And when I came back, everything had changed. And you had a lot of guys that were now under contract. I think, Chuck Palumbo, I think that name comes to mind. Sonny Siaki. I believe those guys were under contract at the time. Maybe Sean O'Hare. Big Jerry the Wall. Remember him?
Yeah, Jerry Tweed. Yeah. New
Yeah.
Jersey guy. Yep.
Yeah. Right. Super guy. Just gone too soon.
Way too soon. Oh my God.
Just a great guy. He was real tight with Big Ron, and we used to go cash our checks, the three of us, every Friday, or go deposit them every Friday. Jerry had a heart of gold. But it just depended. Some guys were under contract and some guys weren't. I think Chip Minton, the Olympic bobsledder, I believe he was under contract. They never did much with him. They never really gave him a chance.
Yep.
I never understood that. I mean, he was very talented. And here the Olympics were in Atlanta in '96. So you have an Olympian. I understand it's not the summer games, it's the winter games, but Chip was an incredible athlete and a very good wrestler. Someone said he lacked charisma. I said, well, I mean, I think he's made his living for years afterwards as an evangelist. So I mean, he must have some charisma.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
So not everybody got a chance. I mean, that's the thing. It was difficult. It was stressful. Not everyone gets a chance, and that's the hardest part about it is that you don't always get a chance, and that's my biggest regret is I never really had a match in WCW where I was able to go out there. I mean, as Buzz Stern's student, right? I'm supposed to be a guy who's learning the ropes, who doesn't know how to wrestle the way a guy from the power plant can wrestle. So I had to tone it down. And so that's disappointing, but I'm grateful for what I did get to do. I'm grateful to have been a part of that in that very, very small way.
With that, right? When you originally come in, do you pick your name? Do they pick your name? Like as far as when they take you off and they put you on TV and stuff?
Well, you pick your name, right? So I picked the name Big Sexy. I don't know if you've heard that story or not.
No, that is great though, because obviously remember Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Well, that came later.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I was Big Sexy. If someone from the power plant sees me today, they'll still call me Big Sexy. Nice. And at some point, it was decided that someone else was going to be Big Sexy. Someone like that name, I guess, And so it was taken from me. So they said, pick another name. So my name's Luther. And I wanted to hold on to Big Sexy best I could. So I picked Biggs, which is, basically Big Sexy, just take away the EXY.
Yes. Wow. Didn't realize that. That's great.
Yeah, that was me holding on to it the best I could.
Damn, I love that. I guess Nash loved the Big Sexy moniker. Obviously, he became known so well known as Big Sexy.
He became known that very much so, yes.
Great nickname, though. That's a good one on your part.
Well, Ron Reese came up with it. Ron Reese gave me that name, so I can't take credit for it. That's Big Ron. Ron was a very creative guy. The Yeti.
Yeah, the Yeti.
Right.
Did you like that gimmick, the Yeti, or do you think that was ridiculous?
I mean, I thought it was ridiculous, but I thought Ron doing it was great. I mean, yeah, it was ridiculous, but it's got such a great place in people's hearts. I mean, a lot of people like it. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't think anybody would try and tell you that it did, but but I loved it. I mean, it's amazing that I was actually in the crowd as a fan at that. I believe it was Halloween Havoc, right, where he and
Yeah.
and Paul White came out and where they attacked Hogan, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was in the crowd. Little do I know that I don't know what it was. 6 months, 7, 8 months later, this guy would be my roommate. The guy dressed as the Yeti. So
Crazy.
I didn't really know Ron then. I'd met him one time, but I didn't really know him.
So were you there as a fan, or were you there a part of WCW?
I was a fan. I was sitting in the crowd. I was a high school football coach in Michigan years ago, and one of my players had a bunch of tickets. So somebody called me and said, "Do you want to go to it?" I actually had tickets to the Detroit Lions game that day, and I said, "Nah, you know what? I'd rather go to the wrestling." So I did. I enjoyed it very much.
I love Halloween Havoc. I always loved Halloween Havoc, but '95 is so funny because obviously Flair turns on Sting, and that was great. But then, like, very real, like the realism, like, wow, Flair turned on it. He pretended he was his friend. He used him. But then the main event comes, and you're like, okay, Hogan gets knocked off the Giant gets knocked off the building. Is this match going to happen? And then they kind of ignore it. And then he wrestles, and the Yeti comes out, who wasn't. He was supposed to be like a Frozen thing where he came out of a ice, and then now he's a mummy. So you're like, and then he's hugging Hogan. Like, that was crazy. What a weird turn of events that show was.
Yeah. I never have quite understood, Yeti versus mummy versus, really what it was. But it has, the thing about it is it has a place in history that people remember, and good for Ron for that.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's what you want.
And Shivani helps out a lot too, because his call, the Yeti, he calls the Yeti, so everybody remembers that.
That's exactly right. The way you say it can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yep. So obviously Reese became a character with Raven's Flock, and he's on TV. So Luther Biggs is really just kind of used on like Pro and Saturday Night and stuff. Like they're just using, but they're not really using you like basically to your full potential.
No, I didn't think so. And then, I had the opportunity with Ray when we did the Buzz Stern, and that was going to go, down that storyline where he's the coach, the sadistic coach that kicks me around and, really eventually causes me to lose matches, when I'm supposed to win. And then a feud starts between us, and then we go at it.
Yep.
Well, Dusty was our boss. He came down and he shot the vignettes, and then for some reason, Dusty left the company, in that big purge they had, I guess. And then when Dusty left, we were kind of on the shelf, and it just died on the vine from there.
When you got your contract, that was 99-ish, like 2000?
99, yep.
And that's crazy because, like, who would have thought 2 years later they're basically gone, right? I mean, 01, just unthinkable in 99.
Yes. And thank God Dusty started Turnbuckle, because it gave us all a great place to go and really enjoy wrestling again.
Were you shocked when that happened, when Vince buys WCW? Like, what was the thought process?
Well, I mean, not really. I don't think that many people were they? I mean, the company was doing so poorly. Things weren't making sense. I don't think anybody would thought that Vince McMahon would buy it for as little as he did, but I do think that nobody was that shocked by it.
That's one of those controversial things that I don't know if you saw that documentary, Who Killed WCW. They get into a little bit. Stu Schneider and his relationship with Brad Siegel. I don't know if you saw that documentary.
I did see it. I did. I didn't know what to make of it. I don't know whose telling the truth, but it sounded pretty reasonable that basically the people at Turner didn't want it anymore. And of course, it was losing a lot of money, and it sounded like a pretty reasonable to me.
If you ever read the book Nitro by Guy Evans, he kind of goes into it. He interviewed like 125 guys, but not just wrestlers, like behind the scenes guys, like Dick Cheatham, who was obviously in the documentary too, like really like important figures and important guys. And they go into like what happened and like why they want to get rid of him. It basically came down to like they all hated wrestling except for Ted Turner.
Right?
Nuts.
Yes, Guy did a great job on that book. He interviewed big names and small names. That would be me included. So
yes.
His interview me, I had a little blurb in there, which I was very happy about. Nice.
But I love that, like, you know, you get a little bit more truth after all these years of like, what was going on? Because it can't be, oh, they just had bad creative, so they were done. Like, the business doesn't work like that. You know what I mean?
Right. I think, there's a lot to it, but yes, people didn't, the people upstairs didn't like wrestling. Isn't that what it kind of boiled down to?
Big time.
And it was losing so much money that it made it easy for them to get rid of it.
And when Ted loses control, obviously he's no longer the one that kind of keeps it around. That means somebody else can say, we don't like wrestling and we want to go. Too bad for Ted.
Right.
Have you seen Call Me Ted, the documentary on Ted Turner?
I don't think I've seen that. How old is it?
Literally just came out the beginning of November, so not long at all.
I have not seen that. What's it on?
Max, HBO Max.
Okay. Is it good?
I liked that. I thought it was good. 6-part series. I read online, didn't get great reviews, but it's literally kind of a documentary on his life in his own words, which I thought was great.
Yeah, I did. I read his book, and that was real good. So I would imagine it's something like that.
It was just odd they didn't cover wrestling as much as I thought they would in Call Me Ted. But it's interesting to go through what happened in 2000, 2001 and like see how much power he lost and, you know, kind of friends within Turner Broadcast kind of screwed him, or Time Warner really kind of screwed him. AOL really was lying about their finances. Really interesting, which I think that's all in the book too, but very interesting, Doc.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
I'm giving you a lot of stuff to watch here. The Elvis Netflix thing.
I was planning on watching Elvis already. But yeah.
Well, yeah, true, of course. Yeah. You're a big Elvis guy, yeah.
Yeah.
But as we hit the wind out here, we head towards the finish. Are you still wrestling? Because I thought I saw that you came back and you wrestled for TCW.
Well, we did. They started Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling back up. And they invited Ray Lloyd and I to come back. Of course, they have quite an impressive stable of young wrestlers that were the bulk of the card, but then they wanted to do one match with what they called the Luminaries, the TCW Luminaries, which
nice.
I love that name.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know, if that comes from Cody. I mean, that's I love that name. That's something that Dusty definitely would have used. So yes, they brought us back, and we did like an 8-man tag, and it was the time of my life, and I loved it, and I would love to do it again. I can't do a whole lot. I'm not, I'm older now, and I'm not anywhere in the shape I was then. But an 8-man tag, I can make that work. So I loved it. I really did. I'm very grateful to them for thinking of us, because I think that Turnbuckle represents such a great period in our lives. Certainly for me, it was the highlight of my time in wrestling. Now Ray, here's a guy who wrestled in the Georgia Dome and the Astrodome and all that. But I still think that he would rank it way up there, getting to work that closely with Dusty. I always like the small towns. You may know that. I don't like to fly to these big towns. I flew to I would have liked to wrestle in Norfolk Scope. We could talk about that another time, but flew there twice and it didn't work out. But I loved going through the Carolinas, all over Georgia, parts of Florida, to these small towns that Dusty booked shows in. And it was a bunch of guys on the road, some of the ladies too on the road. They all did a great job, and we just had a fabulous time. It was time of my life, and I think Ray would put it right up there with some of the great things that he got to do also.
Love the Blood Runs Cold, the Glacier. And I know, some people's hit or miss, but I know I loved it. I love the theme song. I love the presentation of it. So yeah, obviously he had a good time with Glacier.
I was a big fan of that. I was a big fan of the whole Glacier thing.
So of course we got to mention the Unbreakable Bunch, available now on streaming. Give us a big push for the movie, because not only are you in it, not only is Glacier in it, but you got Ming, aka Tonga, you got Ernest Camillo, you got a ton of Larry Zbyszko, we mentioned, ton of great stars.
Yeah, it's if you're a wrestling fan, I think you'll enjoy it, and I think that it's something that we worked on for a long time. One of the most fascinating places to me, when I started out wrestling, I would travel around with Pistol Pez Watley, the great Pistol Pez Watley, and we would go to these shows, and you'd be in the locker room with guys like Ronnie Garvin, like the Mongolian Stomper. I was on a show with Terry Gordy. You're in there with these guys that have made gigantic names in the world of wrestling, and you're also on the in the locker room with guys that maybe having their first match. So that independent scene is very unique, and so that's sort of where the idea of the movie came from. I thought, it's such a unique cast of characters. If things really got ugly and went down, who are the real heroes? Who really would be the ones to step up? And that's sort of where it first came. And, there were many different ideas about this movie. But, and then it morphed into, okay, well, what do you love so much about wrestling? And what I loved is what I just talked about, going to those towns, being on the road with my friends, all of that stuff. And so I thought, well, people watch wrestling and all they see is what goes on in the ring. And I know there are fans who like to watch podcasts and, they know the inner workings of it and stuff, but even they don't really get to see the camaraderie, right? The friendship and the loyalty that develops over the years. And so I wanted to take that interesting mix that you would get of, people at different stages of their career and throw it on the road and try and find a way to demonstrate that friendship, that loyalty, the camaraderie of all working towards one goal. Putting on the best show you could, and then getting to the next town and having a great time doing it. And of course, you need, in a movie, right? You need more than just that. So we threw in some aliens to fight.
Yes. It's almost like, I think Ray said it too. It's like an old Western meets They Live. It's like you know what I mean? You got the group of guys together, and you got like that kind of funny concept and the wrestling in the mix, and it's just a really fun movie. Obviously, it's available streaming now, so you can get it everywhere, including Amazon. So which is great.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is great. I was very happy that we got distribution like that and are available in so many places. And yes, it does have a little bit of a Western aspect to it. I mean, we're all such fans of the Westerns. We had to get some of that in there. So,
Love that.
But it was a labor of love, and it was made for the wrestling fan. I mean, for people who love wrestling, who, if you watched Tonga wrestle all those years, you're going to get to tune in and see a whole different side of him that you haven't seen. Larry Zbyszko was not only a great wrestler, but he was a great commentator. And, tune in, you're going to be surprised what a great actor he is.
Yes.
And Ernest the Cat Miller is a world champion in karate. And he's, none of us are young. And boy, I'll tell you what, the guy moves like a cat to this day. And you'll see that. I mean, he really has a chance to showcase some of his great karate. So, and there's a lot of fun cameos along the way, and I think that's what makes it fun. I mean, I get, from what I understand, some of these other wrestlers, when we filmed it, weren't that well known, and now thanks to AEW, they are.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's pretty fun. So, I hope that the wrestling fans will embrace it, and I hope they'll enjoy it. And it's the kind of movie that I would have liked to have seen. I love the idea of wrestling movies. They don't come along that often. And we tried to get a good bit of wrestling in. I thought it was important to have wrestling in the movie. Some people differed on that. And that's up to the fans to determine. But I look forward to seeing what they think of it.
Gotta have that wrestling in there for me, anyway. Being a wrestling fan,
so, right?
100%. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, of course, the Unbreakable Bunch movie.com for all the other info for everything. Of course, available streaming. Pretty simple. It's on Amazon. It's on every other streaming platform. But where can everybody find you if they want to find you?
Well, call Ray Lloyd. He knows where I am all the time. Now, I don't really have any kind of anything big, I mean, I'm not, I'm just down here in Florida and living my life.
Love it.
Hoping to make another movie, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I would love to see the bunch get back together. I mean, there's a lot more we could do.
Great. I was going to say, Luther, I hope not only do we see you again here on the show, because we got to get you back. We barely even scratched surface, but I'm hoping to see you again in the movies.
Sure. I hope so, too. And I would love to come back on your show.
All right, Luther, thank you so much. Really appreciate all the time.
Thank you. And have a great night. Appreciate it very much.